Good afternoon. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start our formal program now. I've got the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker today. My name is Neel Kashkari. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Christophe Beck. Christophe is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Ecolab, the global leader in water, hygiene, and infection prevention solutions. Ecolab has about 48,000 employees scattered all around the world, so it's a big, globally relevant company. I know Christophe is passionate about water stewardship and the environment. We're going to get into that and the really important role that Ecolab plays in those important initiatives. Christophe was named Ecolab's President and Chief Executive Officer in January of 2021, and he became Chairman in May of 2022. He joined Ecolab in 2007. He's got a really remarkable background, which I'm not going to get into in detail, so we leave time for him. He's a native of Switzerland. He holds both Swiss and U.S. citizenships, and he's an engineer by training. He has a master's degree in engineering from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Got his start working on space shuttle work for the European Space Agency. He's very active here in Minnesota and around the country. He's chair, in addition of Ecolab, he's chair of the Greater MSP. He's on the board of directors of the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundations, and he's also on the board of directors of Delta Airlines. So please join me in welcoming Christophe Beck to the stage.
Neel, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Well, everyone came for you.
So I just learned that, I didn't realize this, that the governor of Minnesota is in Switzerland today.
He is.
At the Ecolab offices, and he's saying, where's Christophe?
Right.
Exactly.
I'm setting priorities, so I've seen Chris Schmieder as well in the room, so trying to be everywhere at the same time.
Well, thank you for honoring your commitments. We really appreciate you being here. Let me start with Ecolab. I did not know, until we got to know each other, I did not understand the full breadth of Ecolab's businesses and technologies. Just give us a few minutes about what Ecolab is today.
It's a great question, because usually people ask that question a little bit differently. They say, yeah, I've seen you in the bathroom, which is very inspiring, usually to start the discussion. So I'm glad that we're starting our lunch as well on that note, which is less than 1% of what we're doing, but that's what apparently is so staying in people's minds. You know, we've been for 102 years passionate about our purpose, which is protecting people and the resources vital to life. And we've become now, as you said, so a company with 48,000 people serving 3 million customers in 40 different industries, from data centers to restaurants to hotels to car manufacturing to power plant, you name it. And our objective, which we've delivered in a way last year in 24, was to protect 1.7 billion people from infections and enough water for the drinking needs of 780 million people. And our path to get to much more by 2030. We're a growth company. I started 18 years ago now. We're a 4 billion company, a 12 billion market cap company. We're 75 today. It's a bit changing the last few days, as we know. But it's been a great story of impact, of protecting people, natural resources. We protect a third of the world food production, for instance, as well, a quarter of the power that's generated as well around the world. And today, where we need water and energy more than ever because of artificial intelligence for the most part, well, what we do is even more essential to make sure that we can keep growing and living the way that we all deserve to.
That's terrific. You mentioned AI, and I've got a few questions around AI. Everybody's talking about AI. One thing I learned from you, which I did not appreciate, everyone talks about the power demands to power these data centers. You opened my eyes to the water demands that these data centers also require. Could you just educate us a little bit about that, and what is Ecolab's role in that ecosystem?
Yeah, if you start with a few facts on water first, before AI became a big deal, AI has been existing so for 30, 40 years, obviously, at least in theory, in the last 2-3 years, much more in practice. And before that, I've been focusing on understanding, so what's the water challenge that we have out there? And starting by figuring out how big would a bowl of water be if you were to put all the fresh water of the earth in one of those? How big would it be? What would be the diameter of that bubble, bowl, sphere, whatever you want to call it? Well, it would be 36 miles. So that's kind of the Twin Cities. You would have that bubble on top of it. That's all the water we have on the planet if you exclude the salt water from the sea. And we realized that by 2030, before AI, we would need, as a planet, 56% more water than what nature can provide. So that's a problem, because we can create energy, we can't create water, unfortunately. So we all have to find ways to reuse and recycle water, as nature has done for millions or billions of years, obviously, on the planet. And when you think about it, 150 companies out there impact a third of the world water usage. And that was before AI as well, which led to a whole thing that we generated, so with the United Nations as well, the Water Resilience Coalition, as we called it, to bring those 150 companies to really learn from each other and being able to keep growing as a planet. AI came 2 years ago. Everything changed, because if we thought that we had an opportunity or a challenge, now we estimate that AI will require the incremental power of the whole of India as a country and the whole of the United States in terms of drinking water in the next 4 years, by 2030. So if we thought we had a challenge a few years back, well, we have a bigger one, which is how it's driving what we do as a company. And why is that, that we need so much power and water? Well, you need the power to power the computers, so the chips. But the most important part is that you need a lot of water to produce the power that powers the chips. That's the power plant. It's the #1 usage of water on the planet. Then you need a lot of water to produce the chips. When you cut the silicium, you polish the silicium, you print the silicium, you need to rinse it and all that. One fab, and there are 500 in the world today, require the water needs of 17 million people. And we build one every month right now, mostly in Asia, as we know. So finally, you have the data centers where they're being powered, obviously, so with electricity. They create a lot of heat. And when you create a lot of heat, well, you need to remove that heat, which means cooling. And that's been done with water, air conditioning, so quite a bit up to now. And technology is changing now. So for us as a company, it's been focusing on how do we help produce more power in power generation with water technology that allows you to produce more power with the same energy that you have. Second, it's to reuse and recycle water in a fab, which, interestingly enough, the water that's being used is 1,000 times more pure than the water that you use for pharma, that you inject in your own bloodstream. So it's pretty high tech. So to do that, and we just acquired a company there for $1.8 billion a few weeks ago that does exactly that, so we can reuse and recycle water. And last but not least, it's to develop waterless technologies to cool data centers so that ultimately we can keep growing the AI supply to all of us in ways that are protecting natural resources, especially water, and that we can have enough power, hopefully, to make it work. But that's a different question.
That's great. So let's stay just one more second on AI. Now, in my role at the Federal Reserve, I'm always asking companies, how are you using AI? Because a big question in financial markets is AI a bubble? Is this technology actually going to produce productivity-enhancing benefits to its customers? I'm curious, how does Ecolab use AI?
So 4 different ways. One we just mentioned. It's how do we enable the infrastructure to make sure that we get the AI power. The second one is what we call best in class in our own organization. As mentioned before, so we serve 3 million customers around the world, and we help them deliver their business promise at the right cost while reducing impact on the environment. So I had a customer 5 years ago who asked me, well, I have 40,000 restaurants in the world. Which one is the best one? With the best guest satisfaction, the best performance, the best environmental impact, which one is it? And they're all franchised, it's an American chain. And I said, well, let me ask my team. And he said, well, before you get there, so the second question is, what would it take to make my 40,000 restaurants perform like the best one I have on the planet? And the third is, how do we get there? And as hard as it's been, obviously, so to get you teams together from wherever around the world to understand that, and how do you develop those plans? Well, AI today can do it in a few seconds, where you can be in front of a restaurant and understand what's the performance of that restaurant, what could be done in order to capture the potential, and what could I do as a sales or service person in front of it. So that's what we call One Ecolab platform that we've developed with our key shareholders, or Microsoft as well, to serve all those industries. So that's the second way. And the third one, and I really go in that order, it's to improve the performance of our own operations. And it's very conscious that we don't start talking about that first, because too many organizations start talking about AI, how much cost they can save, which means how many jobs you could save, which is very inspiring, obviously, so for people in the organization saying, sorry guys, a third of you, well, I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do with you. So we said that's not the way we want to approach it. No, it's how do we enable AI, how do we leverage it for the sake of our customers, for the growth of our company, while we manage as well so to improve our own performance along the way. And Fortune has just ranked all Fortune 500 companies a few weeks back on their AI preparedness for the future, and we were number 9. So in a good place.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to stay on a topic that's helpful for me. Hopefully other people find it interesting, which is this year has been very challenging economically in terms of a lot of changes.
Really?
We've had big policy changes on tariffs and trade, big policy changes on immigration, other regulatory changes, tax changes. How has Ecolab experienced these changes, and are you optimistic for 2026?
Let's put it that way. We've gotten used to that kind of dramatic changes over the last 5 years. We are in that time now, the last 2 months, we've been preparing our plans for 26. And I was thinking the other day, 2 weekends ago, and saying, okay, when I think a year ago, we were doing the same thing. We spent 2 months preparing the plans for 172 countries around the world. Then the year started, 25, and none of those plans were valid anymore. So that's one way to spend our life, spending so much time on things that are totally useless. And we've done it again this year. And I guess that something dramatic is going to happen in 26 again. I don't know what it's going to be, but something is going to happen. So I think the most important, so for us, when I think about the way we dealt with the tariffs, for instance, it's the way we've prepared the company, not for the tariffs, obviously, so over the years, but it was always to say we are so focused on being super resilient for our customers. When we don't serve an operating room in a hospital, the hospital stops. When we don't serve a dish machine in a restaurant, the restaurant stops, or in a nuclear power plant, or in a data center, as mentioned before. So for us, it's absolutely essential that we can serve our customers whatever happens out there. And that's how we've brought all our manufacturing capabilities very close to our customers. 92% of what we sell is produced locally today. So it helped for resilience, it helped for FX, it helps for geopolitical issues, and then it helped us for tariffs. That was not planned for that. But that practice of being super resilient, that our customers can count on us, whatever happens, has been a huge advantage for us to go through the past few years. But the last 2 things I'd say, the first one is how do we build that resilience? There's a lot of infrastructure and processes and all the things, but at the end of the day, it's our teams that makes the whole difference. And the way we dealt with our team during the pandemic, during COVID in 2020 in March when the world stopped, a quarter of our company is focused on 1.5 million restaurants out there. Well, they all went to zero. We had 12,000 people working for restaurants and hotels around the world. We had this big decision to make. What do we do with them when our customers were just letting everybody else go? We kept 12,000 people in the company. We paid their salary, their bonuses, and it's been the best decision that we've ever made because people remember. And when it gets tougher, when it gets different to what your plans are, well, ultimately, they're here with you, for the customers as well at the same time. So we've become better over time. And to your question, 26, I think it's going to be similar than what we've experienced in 25. The way I speak to investors, for instance, is I'm pretty convinced that we will deliver our promise in 26 or in 25 for this year. But I'm pretty sure as well that the path to get there will be totally different than what I thought or what you thought as well at the same time. So that's a little bit the world we live in now.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. All right, let me shift gears a little bit to local and state. You are one of the few CEOs in town today of a big company. Let me just say, you err on being engaged civically. Like I see it firsthand. You're engaged at the state level, you're engaged in local foundations, what's happening in St. Paul, where your headquarters is. Just talk about that. Why have you decided to make this a priority, given you have 48,000 employees and millions of customers all around the world?
I probably spend too much time on local things, but it's driven by a few things. First, I happen to like people, so people's life around me matter. And when I came back from Chicago, so right before COVID, we experienced some difficult times, to say all of us, obviously. And I was looking at what was happening in St. Paul in 2020 and with everything else that happened the years after. But I had as well in mind, we talked with a few of you during the reception, how my predecessor, Doug Baker, was involved in the community together with Richard Davis, by the way, so from US Bank. These two were super involved. One was in St. Paul, the other one in Minneapolis. Not sure which city is better than the other. I don't really care. I'm not from here. But they're both good.
They're both great.
Great, even. So I was watching these two and saying, well, it's cool what they're doing for the community, for social questions, but also building the US Bank Stadium for the Super Bowl, which is part of the community as well, called life. And that impressed me, what these two did. And when COVID struck, well, they were doing different things, obviously, so at that time. And there was not many people left from the business community who really wanted to be engaged. And I realized in St. Paul how we could get together with other CEOs, Chris Hilger from Securian, Jay from CHS, we had the police chief, we had the mayor, we had everybody, so came together and saying, well, how do we protect our people? How do we protect our communities? How do we make sure that restaurants and retail stores are still open for people to continue to live in the depths of COVID, obviously? And I've learned a lot, so doing that, and the more you do that, the more you're being asked to do things as well. That's how I ended up chair of Greater MSP. I talked too much, I did too much probably, and then it's like, okay, why don't you do that? And then I'm spending way more time on that. But it's been a good thing. And you know, there's this last thing, which I think is pretty critical in the times that we live now. Everywhere, that's true in Minnesota, but that's true in many places around the country and around the world. We spend so much time about how do we want to share a shrinking pie. Tax the rich, the bigger companies, the bigger cities, the whatever that is. And this is uninspiring, it's frustrating. You say, I don't want to spend my time on sharing a shrinking pie. This is really not fun, as I think we have only one life. I prefer spending my time on how do we grow the pie, that we can debate afterwards how to share it. And I've been impressed how we can do things in this community here in Minnesota to get more industries, more innovation, more talent. But at the end of the day, we're in the last quartile in terms of GDP in the country. And it's been a while. So we can see that as a problem. I see that as a major opportunity. And if we can bring Minnesota, help bring Minnesota's economy to the first quartile of the country, with greater MSP, with a bunch of other CEOs. Chris Galvin from Anderson Windows has been very active, with Bob Frenzel from Excel Energy as well, and saying, well, how much investment would that generate? How many more jobs would that create? And we have all those projects on data centers, on MedTech 3.0, on sustainable aviation fuel. We have plenty of ideas. We have great companies. We have a great set of universities around us. So for me, is how do we grow the state in order to make sure we have a better future, more jobs, more innovation, and that we can talk afterwards about how do we share it, but not the other way around, which is way too much the focus today. Thank you.
But, and that all, I mean, it's certainly going to resonate with this audience, but you also do other things which are focused on those who are less fortunate. Like, I think today you announced something around affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Could you share a little bit about that?
Wow, that's a very different topic. You know, I came from a country, you mentioned Switzerland, where we have no homeless. And we have no homeless not because the concept doesn't exist, but there's a different concept in the country, which is you take care of everyone. It's a super successful economic story, obviously, as a country. So it's not that it's just welfare for all and let's hope for the best. It's let's be successful. Let's make sure we protect each other because that's so critical for the future of the country. And as a Swiss kid, when you're born, you get in your passport the name of a city where your ancestor came from. And whatever happens to you in your life, wherever around the world, if you have nothing left, no one can help you, you know you can go back to that city or that village, and they have the duty to take care of you. And it's ingrained for 700 years in this country, and that's why you have literally no homeless. And I've seen too many people around us, not just in Minnesota, obviously, because this is a challenge we have everywhere in the country. And you said, this is not right. This is not fair. That could be us. That could be me. Life chooses that for you. We can't choose, obviously. No one chooses to be a homeless. And I said, well, we can solve that. We can do something about it. And my predecessor was very involved as well in that, supporting the Catholic Charities, which is our neighbor in St. Paul as well. And he said, okay, there's a money issue, but there's most importantly an organizational issue as well. How do we bring the providers together, the cities, the counties, the state? And we created a homelessness roundtable 3 years ago. That was one of those things where I suggested that and ended up with the project afterwards. And we do that every quarter we meet. All the providers are coming, all the counties, all the cities, the state are coming together around the table every time, on time, well prepared, delivering on what we've promised, living on time. I've been so impressed with people involved in homelessness. And we've announced this morning, so together with the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation, that will invest $23 million for homelessness, and with a clear plan behind it as well. Because I think that as Minnesota, we can end homelessness, and we should be proud of doing it the right way for people around us. It's going to help everyone. Our companies, our families, our life around here, the safety of our people, and most importantly, people who are impacted with homelessness. So, sorry, a bit passionate about the topic.
We're going to turn to all of you in a moment for your questions, so we're going to have mics coming out to you. Let me just shift to something lighter topic. You've got a big job, you've got a family, a lot of pressures on your time. How do you relax?
Well, that's a discussion I'm having with my wife quite often. I haven't succeeded much on that path. You know, it's trying to spend a little time I have so with my family. By far not enough, and this is a big question so for me, and which doesn't help the time with the family. Obviously, my way to relax is to fly, and I've been flying so almost all my life. I was an aerospace engineer, as you mentioned, and for a while I didn't have the means to fly. So when I finally got the means to fly, I really started to fly, and I've been flying almost everything that's available out there. So that's the way I relax. I went to Wall Road, Minnesota this weekend, which is further north. Obviously, Marvin Windows is over there. You can't miss it. It's all yellow in the woods. And that's the way I relax. That's one way of doing it.
But when you say you fly everything that's out there, just to be clear, that's both, I've never met somebody who does this, that's both airplanes and helicopters. I've met one or the other. I haven't met both, so it's pretty remarkable. All right, so let's, and he's also, I can attest to this in firsthand experience, he's a brilliant skier. We go skiing once in a while, and Jeff Greiner is here too, who's also an excellent skier. I can kind of keep up, but watching these guys ski, it's a work of art. So let's see some microphones, and if you got a question, hands up. Microphones in the back in here. All right, there's back there. And please introduce yourself before you ask your question.
Hi, Christophe Roger Kempa. I'm the CFO of NatureWorks, a biopolymer company here in town. And then I'm also on the board of Catholic Charities. So thank you for your continued commitment to
Thank you for your service, too.
I do have a question. Sorry, I'm getting a little echo. That's why I'm stuttering a little bit. A little bit of a question about AI. You talked about the exciting opportunities that AI is presenting for your opportunity. How are you keeping your investors and your employee base focused on all the other things that your organization does with all the excitement of AI?
It's a journey, and it starts with me using it all the time. I've made a few shifts in my own ways of doing things over time. I don't use Google anymore. I use ChatGPT or Copilot. The moment that you shift to that type of technology, and it's not an advertising for any of those, it's if you go also towards AI technology or GPT technology, you never go back to normal search engines. That was to force myself as well into it. The second is to say, I don't want to use any paper ever. We serve the paper industry, which is a bit problematic for the company, but that aside, it's forcing you to use all technology all the time. And the moment that you do that, well, people around you either had already started, and we have a few on our executive team who are way ahead of me in every meeting, so it's transcribed, it's summarized, we get a summary afterwards. And when people see other people do it, there's always more people who try to do it. And it's also been that discussion of saying, well, there's this whole debate, is it going to be a big revolution, or is it going to be something that's going to evolve and transform naturally? And I said, well, I think it's going to be a dramatic revolution. And I remember talking to one of the tech guys in the industry, and we were talking about this long-term planning, and he said, we don't think in years anymore, we think in months, and years have become months. And that really stayed with me, the way I'm planning for the company as well, at what pace, at what speed, and ultimately saying, well, okay, if you have two trains out there, one that's moving really fast, kind of years have become months, and you have the other one that's a little bit the normal life, which one do you want to take? I think the answer is obvious, because if it's the speed train that wins and you missed it, well, you're kind of screwed. If you're on the other one, well, you might be lucky that the world is going the slow way. I don't think it's going to be the case. So it's really having that discussion broadly, especially with the new generation. So cool to have students with us today, because that's the big deal as well with AI. I have to be careful when I'm talking about age, obviously, so here, but people earlier in career know way more about technology and AI than people later in career. I hope I used all the right words here. And that's the way we
Except
need to...
for the two of us.
It's,
We're on
with
the
two
frontier.
exceptions.
We're the two exceptions.
Right.
Go ahead.
Forever young here on stage. But then it's reaching out so to the front line as well, people earlier in their careers. And the last thing is what we discussed before is position that as a growth idea, not a cost-cutting productivity idea where you scare everyone out there. This is the unfortunate approach. So I'm really bullish about it, and it's going to be messy, it's going to be complicated, there's a lot of things we don't know. Is it going to be a bubble, big bubble, small bubble? I don't know, but it's going to keep developing, so for sure. So kind of the spirit of embracing it and seeing it from the good side.
Thank you. Others in the back?
Christophe, thank you so much for your remarks. My name's George Boyadjus. I'm with Savills. We're a commercial real estate firm. A few years back, Ecolab developed the water risk monetizer, which I thought you might share a little bit about that with us today. I thought it was groundbreaking when I saw that you came out with that. Maybe if you could share a little bit about that for the audience, please.
I'm smiling here because it's been something we thought was a great idea that didn't end up as a great idea. So it's basically, it started with an interesting fact that the cost of water in places where there's the most, Holland, for instance, is 10 times more than the cost of water in places where there's none, like some places in India, for instance. So there is no correlation of the supply and demand in water. And considering all the shortages and challenges I shared before, you say, well, there's an economic challenge here. And saying, well, if supply and demand is not respective from an economic perspective, how is it going to work from a physical perspective as well afterwards? So we came with that idea to develop this water risk monetizer, which was basically for any company at any site around the world, wherever you plant your restaurant, your data center is, that you could understand what's the real cost of water if you consider everything, the infrastructure, the supply and demand, the quality, the risk of shortage, you name it. And we developed that platform, which I thought was an unbelievable innovation. And it was for free, by the way. So that's the good news. The less good news is that almost no one used it. So we said, okay, some people are saying an idea that doesn't end up well was a bad idea. I'm not sure it was a bad idea because it's still the right thing to do. I'm pretty convinced about it, but that's not the way humans work in a way, which is a little bit of a separate discussion. So interestingly enough, the way we shifted from there, which has been at the core of who we are as a company, some of us maybe remember the original name of the company. Ecolab meant Economics Laboratory in 1923. And the whole idea, because we invented the dry carpet cleaner and the dishwashing detergent for automatic machines, was this whole idea of producing better outcomes, a quicker room that's available for you, or dishes in a restaurant, while you use less energy, less water, less labor, create less waste. That was the original idea of the company, so it was an economic idea. So over time, we've really shifted from this supply-demand economics question more towards if you save water, you save energy, because 75% of the energy is being used to manage water. Which we often forget. It's to heat water, it's to cool water, it's to pump water, it's to treat water, you name it. So if you reuse and recycle water, you reuse and recycle energy, which has a way higher cost than water. So ultimately, you can demonstrate to someone that using less water means using less energy, less cost, and when ESGs were in fashion, well, you reduced your footprint as well at the same time. So that was a great idea that turned out into more into a great learning than a great idea. But we all learn. Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Oh, over there.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Susie Steinhagen, Project Consulting Group. We've been in Minnesota. We're founded here for 27 years. And your comments around civic duty, I was impressed by the idea of growing the pie versus sharing the pie. And we're blessed to have an incredible hotbed of leaders here in Minnesota. And you sit with a really unique perspective in all of the conversations that you're in. And many of the great leaders are here today. And I wonder if there's a piece of advice or a call to action that you could leave for us on how we may consider growing the pie.
Cool question. A few things here. On one hand, the growing the pie is so much more inspiring, optimistic. You build things. The sharing of a shrinking pie, well, has a limit, obviously. When there's no pie left, well, there's nothing left to share, obviously. So it's changing the discussion in dramatic ways when it's about growing the pie, because it's more innovation, it's more economic growth, it's more jobs, it's more investments. What's not to like? Well, interestingly enough, there's a lot apparently not to like when we want to grow as well at the same time. And that brings me to the second topic, where I think that we are our worst enemies sometimes on the path of economic growth. Take data centers, for instance, which is a big topic as we discussed just before. One a week is opening on the planet today, and that's going to happen probably so for the foreseeable future. It's where most of the investments are going. Most of the data centers concentration is in Virginia, so on the East Coast, obviously, on the planet, by the way. Why that? It's because they got organized for it in places where it was the right place to have them, with the right permitting, with the right infrastructure, ways from the communities as well. So thought in advance, planned for it as well. And I see that at greater MSP, so when some of the hyperscalers or the collocators are trying to build a data center here, we get worried because of the water usage, as mentioned before, the power usage, the noise that it could make, the traffic that it could generate. And you say, well, isn't it a question of getting organized for it, that it works well? And the latest data centers don't use more water than a car wash, by the way. So the argument of the water usage is changing with technology as well. We have almost 80% of our power is renewable, is non-fossil in Minnesota as well. So we would have another argument to do it. We have space as well. We can place them at the right places as well. So I'm not getting into an argument whether it's good or bad, but it's how do we get organized in order to drive growth? We have also legacy technologies and industries. Always keep in mind, Silicon Valley started here in Minnesota until it moved to Silicon Valley, as we know. As a young engineer at the European Space Agency, as you mentioned, I was working on Cray computers. Those were the most powerful computers on the planet. Well, they were produced here in Wisconsin. So that was the place. We've lost it. It's the hub of med tech here. 15 of the largest are here. The largest is here. We have Mayo Clinic. We have great hospitals, great infrastructure. Well, we have two paths we can take. One is, okay, to let it move away, or it's to support it. And as part of greater MSP, a few CEOs from Mayo Clinic, Medtronic, and others have created that project called MedTech 3.0. Which is really to think, what's the future of medtech? How do we create the infrastructure around us? How do we make sure that it's good for the communities? How do we educate the right people? Those are the right projects, I believe, that are inspiring people around us. We can build those industries in ways that are respectful of people and the environment. And at the end of the day, will be growing the pie that we can share in ways that are more beneficial for all afterwards. That only happens when business leaders get involved as well. So the piece of advice is get involved, and don't think that it's just for the others. You get so much back when you get involved. I've experienced that myself, and that's probably one of the key reasons. If you're not driven by just helping people around you, well, if you get something back, well, that's hopefully an argument as well, so to get involved.
Other questions? Oh,
Thank you, Christophe. My name is Kwesi. I'm a student at the Humphrey School. Beginning at the tail end of last year, we saw a serious backlash against ESG across the country and across the world. What has been Ecolab's experience, and why have you stayed the course?
That's a difficult question. Thank you for getting there, by the way. Because the world changed somewhat at the beginning of the year. You know, we've been called by many the world's sustainability company. When sustainability becomes, for weird reasons, a problem, and that you're the world's sustainability company, you say, well, okay, what does that mean for me, for us, for our team around the world? At the same time, I remember discussions with our team, somewhere here at the table, on what do we do on DEI? Because in theory, we had to change everything, our website, our contracts, our language, our everything. When our company has become a super diverse company, and our most successful years, the last few years, have been the years where we've been the most diverse. And we stepped back and said, okay, what does it mean for us here? Sustainability is becoming a challenge, DEI is becoming a challenge, or you can call it ESG. And our formula for success, as we call it within the company, we don't broadcast it too much. We say we grow fast by growing our impact on people and planet, and growing our team. So we grow fast by growing our impact and growing our team. So you can put sustainability and diversity on the two parts of the growing fast. And we said, well, two things here. The first one, it's been at the source of our success for 102 years. We've grown because we've helped our customers do more with less, make more money by using less natural resources and producing better products. We've grown because our team has become much more similar to the customers, the markets we serve, the countries that we operate in. That's been our formula for success. Those are the values we truly believe in as an organization. So what we said, we won't change anything. And we did not change anything, which was exactly the right thing to do, to say, we'll stay the course. I remember the discussions in our board, even because that was a big topic, obviously. I said, well, I have an easy choice to make here. It's either to confirm or to lose my team. As a CEO, well, which direction do you go? It's to keep your team. It's to protect your team, the team that's made the difference for the company for 102 years. But that's been very specific for us, and when I look back, that was exactly the right choice for us. But more broadly, I think that ESG became a target because too many have thought that saving the planet just for the sake of saving the planet was okay. And unfortunately, it's not, because we're in the business of making money. As CEOs, well, it's either I grow my earnings every single year or my successor will. So it's an easy choice as well. And some companies kind of went too far on one side and forgot about driving performance, and that's how they became an easy target, unfortunately driven by the right things, most probably. So for us, it's really been drive it with performance in mind. This is true for our company. This is true what we do for our customers out there. And if we help them perform better while protecting nature and people, well, ultimately it's going to be a good deal for everyone. And that's the way we've been thinking through it, and we're learning as everybody else is.
Other questions? Oh, also in the back.
Yeah, hello. My name is Jesse Posada. I'm a senior in high school at Blake, and I have another AI-related question. So I know that you said that Ecolab has 48,000 employees, and so my question is, how many jobs, if any, at Ecolab are taken by AI currently that were once done by humans? And then also, how many jobs do you think AI will continue to take in the future? And then a quick follow-up is, if AI does continue to take more jobs, what skills or attributes do you think are going to be in high demand for a young person or young people looking to enter corporate America in the coming decade?
Well, Jesse, it's hard to predict exactly where we're going to be. But today, probably 10% of our jobs are impacted by AI. I would not say replaced, because it's not about replacing. It's about, for me, it's about enhancing human strength. You're stronger when you leverage AI than if you don't. It's not about being replaced by AI. And to your point of how many jobs will be impacted, I think 100% of the 48,000 will be impacted. And I hope so, that we all go through that we all learn, that we all embrace, that we all become better, stronger, more enhanced humans because we're leveraging technology. We can learn from anyone around the world what's the best idea that you've had to take care of a hospital, a data center, or a hotel. So for me, it's how do we get there the quickest possible as an organization? And how do we get there? We think a lot about this training component. I don't know how much the training is essential here. People don't really go in classrooms too much. People don't really read handbooks when you buy something anymore. You need to have tools that are very intuitive, that you can plug and play and use, and it works immediately, and you get much more adoption, much quicker. People like it, look at each other, how they're doing, how they're working, looking at kids, how they're doing it as well. So I think that's going to be more a cultural question than a training technical question in an organization. But the core is really what I said before. Don't position that as a job elimination journey, because it's not. For us, it's not. The way we approach it as an organization is to say, for a very long time, our company has grown the team at more or less the same pace as the sales have grown of the company. And that has changed over the last few years, where our team is growing less fast than the sales of the company. And for me, that's the easiest way and the healthiest way to manage that transformation in ways that people can adapt, adjust, while staying focused on growing the pie versus being afraid of what's going to happen to me or my colleagues around me as well. Make it a great story, a growth story, an inspiring story, and don't focus on the more difficult side of it, because we can live with it.
I'll give you an example. I asked a CEO of a consumer-facing business, how is your company using AI? And the specific example she gave me, which I thought was very interesting, was she said that they have operators who take phone calls from customers. They have AI listening to the conversation, and it automatically surfaces up prompts to the operator of this is what the person is likely asking about, and it helps the operator get to the right answer much more quickly. So it's not replacing the operator, it's just making the operator more efficient, right, which is an example of what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So any other questions out there? In the back?
Hi, Pam Stigora-Axberg with Union Gospel
Good
Mission.
to see you again, Pam.
I know,
Twice in a day?
Twice in one day. Well, it was a great way to start the day with the announcement this morning.
So Pam is the CEO of the Union Gospel, a great provider for homeless in St. Paul. Just want to salute all you're doing for the community.
Thanks, Christophe. If you want to come take a tour, We're open all the time. Come take a tour at Union Gospel Mission Twin Cities. Go to ugmtc.org. That public message aside, I just would like you to comment a little bit around creating and building and maintaining culture within an organization. I've heard you talk about values, I've heard you talk about people, and in the end, how you put that together, and people who might not be used to working with each other in different ways. What have you done that you think makes that a success, and recommendations we might think about?
You mean from a, I want to make sure I understood what you said, Pam. So a culture of what? Otherwise, I might go the wrong way.
Well, is really thinking about we succeed through how our people, and I've heard you talk about that. And yet, it doesn't happen naturally, necessarily. And what have you done that you think fosters the culture for your team and your organization?
It's a few things. The first one is our purpose is so aligned with the way we grow as an organization. We protect what's vital. The more people we protect from infections, the more we grow. The more water we preserve, the more we grow. So there's a direct correlation between how we grow and what we do every single day. And it doesn't mean that every activity in the company feels directly related to it, but we do our engagement surveys every year, and I'm every year impressed that over 80% of our people around the world, and over 90% are replying, by the way, around the world, say, the work I do every day is aligned with the purpose of the company, which is really showing it's working, and everyone is thinking about it in a bit of a different way. But that's why we measure as well our impact, and that's why I could say, well, we protected 1.7 billion people, and we preserved enough water for 780 million people, and we delivered 16 billion of sales while doing that, and our profit and all that. So it's to link the performance of the company with the purpose, the impact that we have on the customers that we serve every day. So I think that that's part of the magic of the company. But at the same time, it's how we deal with extreme situations. And I mentioned it a bit before, obviously, so during COVID, when we were facing this extreme situation of saying, do we keep those 12,000 people, or do we do like everyone else? I got a lot of love from investors doing that, because it costed us $500 million of earnings a year, and it lasted 2 years. So it's $1 billion, obviously, and it was just during the transition as well. So from my predecessor and me, so I got all the nice comments about the previous one would have never done that. It would have been way much better, and we spent a lot of time together. So I know he would have done exactly the same thing, and we did it together. But people remember how we dealt with our team during extreme situation. And if we are so successful today, I think it's in great parts because of how we dealt in one of the most extreme situations that we went through. And then it's all the individual situations, individual people. We care about our teams. We care about our associates. We don't compromise on performance. So I don't want to give the impression that we just having a group hug every day and hoping for the best. We deliver our promise. But we even say, and that's the last thing I'd say, we say we deliver our promise to our customers, to our teams, to our communities, and our shareholders. Every single day, always. And that's how we've built, I think, that culture of people first.
All right, I'm going to take the liberty to ask one last quick question, which is, Christophe, you're also on the board of Delta Airlines, which I think is very cool because you're a pilot. One of the downsides for Christophe being on the board of Delta Airlines is when my flight is late, he gets a text message. Or
that's true.
Or, hey, could you let Ed know that we need some new movies, right? I've seen all these movies. But tell me about what's your experience been like, other than my annoying texts. What has your experience been like being on the board of Delta?
It's been a year now. So for me, it's obviously a kid in a candy store because there's planes everywhere. And could not be better, obviously, merging so my passion and my life, obviously, so together. But for me, it's been a remarkable story of resilience, too. We at Delta Airlines, we're celebrating our centennial this year, so 100 years in the airline industry. And it's an industry that is experiencing near death pretty often. The 9/11, obviously COVID, shutdowns. There's always something that's happening out there. And Delta has become, today, the largest airline in the world, most profitable, most valuable airline in the world, almost debt-free today. I think it's been a remarkable story. And when I'm sitting in the boardroom and I'm thinking about my challenges at Ecolab, I feel really good. Saying my problems are much easier than Ed's problems, for sure, because they are so extreme. And the way the company think about dealing with adversity is very close to ours. It's an organization of 110,000 people around the world. It's 5,500 flights a day. It's 800,000 passengers a day to 300 destinations when you think about the logistics that it represents every single day. How do you make that happen, that it works most of the time right, except when Neel is sending me a text that something didn't happen correctly? Well, it's because of the culture that they've built. And it's a people-first organization, and I'll make it super short, but it was during deregulation when the company decided to increase salaries to keep and thank their teams in the 90s. They could not buy the new plane, the 767. And 3 flight attendants from Los Angeles came together and said, this is not right what the government is doing at us, because the company decided to pay us more. And now we can't buy a plane. The 3 flight attendants went to Atlanta, met the CFO and said, how much does it cost a plane? It was $40 million back then, and the 3 said, a few are still alive actually, and said, well, it's less than we thought. And they raised that money, and they bought the first 767 for the company to demonstrate that employees are on the side of the company, and it became, the plane is called the Spirit of Delta. It's still at the museum in Atlanta, but it's showing how people-first culture build resilience for companies that have been living so for over 100 years.
Wonderful. This is fantastic. We could keep going for another hour. Please, everyone, join me in thanking Christophe.